I've got to get the boring stuff out of the way first about the fire escapes. Well, I say boring now, but later on in the day when you're on fire and screaming and about to die, you'll kind of think. So the fire escapes are here and here. In the event of a fire, an alarm will sound and make your way out to the car park. Please take your belongings with you, especially your children, if only so I don't have to say the lines of the fire crews. Not even the younglings survive. Our first Q&A today is Robert Picardo. We're going to kick that off now because we are overrunning just slightly. So first off I'm going to show you a bit of a clip of some of his previous work.
Awesome. Total Recall, look on that.
Contact. 20 volt are about to break through that. We need time to get out. Create an diversion.
This isn't part of my program. I'm a doctor, not a doorstopper.
Big buggle bones.
I don't really need to eat me, do you? Oh, indeed I
Gremlins.
The Russians have attacked. The bombs are falling.
The Harley?
According to Starfleet medical research, 4 implants can cause severe skin irritation.
The Harley.
Perhaps you'd like an analgesic cream.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Robert Picardo.
Thank you. The microphone is in the table.
It is, yes. Mine stuck to my head when I leave the car. So basically, can I just start off by saying that originally you were supposed to be in the B hall, and I fought to get you in the A hall. I don't think I should say this, but I fought to get you in the A hall because I was my argument was this. Okay, you faced down the hall,
Right?
you turned into a werewolf,
Yes.
you stopped a gremlin.
Yes. And I was decapitated by Tom Cruise.
Exactly.
Yes, a friend meeting.
Basically made Chuck Norris look like Neelix.
However, we put me in this room thinking I would fill it, so maybe I should have been in the small room. Is that what you're saying?
No, they're very big people. It's like
We're all spread out.
put the big people at the back.
This looks like the 7:30 Mass at a Catholic church.
We've got to get this started pretty quick.
Sure, okay, we're going to talk very quickly.
Yeah, it's sort of like my computer, man. Are there any questions then coming up from the audience that you'd like to ask Robert? I've got to say at this point, if you don't want to, if you've got a burning question you want to ask and you don't want to speak into the microphone, ask one of our lovely assistants and you can speak through them, kind of like poltergeist, and they will ask a question.
I actually have a question for Robert, if I may ask.
Go ahead.
Robert, in the episode Message in a Bottle, which co-starred Andy Dick as the EMH Mark II, when you were bragging to Andy that you even had sexual relations, what did you mean? Oh, I'm sorry, that's me. Remember that episode where I bragged that to EMH Mark II that I've had sexual relations?
Yeah.
I literally called the producers on the phone. I said, excuse me, what does this mean? I said, we saw me initially activated in the pilot. We've caught up with me every week. When did I sneak out and have sex with someone, and in what way? How? I mean, if you're an emergency medical hologram, why would you have why would you even have what kind of emergency medical procedures are we envisioning? Why would you equip him for that? And unless he's going to be a sexual surrogate, an idea I was completely open to when it's Jerry Ryan. Anyway, so there was no good reason. why or how the doctor had, shall we say, upgraded his program. So I decided to create this particular backstory. So what I did is I told the producers that if you won't tell me how, that I'm going to find out how, and I wrote a book called The Hologram's Handbook. And when the producers found out I was writing a comedy book as the doctor called The Hologram's Handbook, they then wrote an episode where the doctor's writing a book, which they stole from me. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from The Hologram's Handbook, which explains how the doctor got his wee-wee. That's a technical term. You all know what a wee-wee is? Good crowd. All right. So here's the doctor explaining his new systems upgrade. I was supposed to petition my captain for this and any other new systems upgrade. The delicate nature of this particular request did not deter me. I proposed countless scenarios to her in which the benefit I would derive from first-hand intimate experience would prove invaluable to my understanding and treatment of future patients, particularly their sexual disorders. Captain Janeway seemed quite convinced after scenario number 26, and felt that hearing the remaining 187 wasn't necessary for her to make her decision. Permission was granted, and Lieutenant Torres was assigned to implement the upgrade. I offered a few suggestions, and was a little miffed to find that B'Elanna, who had recently begun dating Tom Paris, had her own modest design parameters in mind. Having prided myself in my unique individuality, I was understandably reluctant to be assigned my newest feature without regard for my opinion and taste. Nonetheless, I was relatively satisfied with the outcome, and the first dozen or so tests on the holodeck that afternoon proved successful. I might also add that the complete control over my program protocols, which Captain Janeway entrusted to me several years ago, extends quite logically to all of my appearance parameters, even those not normally in evidence. B'Elanna's lack of regard for my suggestions is now a distant memory, as I've suggested and approved several upgrades to myself in the interim.
Fiction. The people in the show are actually
Writing their own fan fiction. That had 7 penis jokes in approximately 20 lines. That's the new record for the Wales Comic Con.
Put Norrison's words backstage.
Exactly. I'm sure the guys, on the 11 a.m. act, I'm sure the guys afternoon will have 12 penis acts per minute.
The Game of Thrones.
Yes, yeah, don't encourage me.
Some kids will learn new words that way. Right, okay, we've got our team on the prowl now with
yes.
microphones.
We have a roving mic.
Yes.
We have every modern convenience here at the Wales Comic Con.
So basically, put your hand in the air, identify yourself if you would like to ask a question.
All right, I see a gentleman there with a similar hairdo.
Do I have to stand up? In the movie Total Recall, when you're whistling in the Johnny Cab, what song are you actually whistling?
Do I whistle in Total Recall? What started me whistling?
Arnold Schwarzenegger
what
passed
song am I
out.
whistling?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to whistle a particular song unless it's public domain, because then they have to pay for it. So I most likely was making up. I completely forgotten that I was whistling. I don't actually appear. It's a puppet of my head and my voice, so I don't consider it a performance. And whenever anyone comes up to the autograph table and says, "Oh man, my favorite role of yours is in Total Recall." Are we in Hall A, did you say?
Yes, that's right.
Is it called A Hall?
It is. I think Picardo in the A.
I think it's better. I was worried about a few lousy penis jokes. Yeah, so my answer to your question is, I have no idea. I have no idea what I was saying. But I do remember that I have a beautiful picture of Total Recall, which is hidden in a box at my autograph table. If you ask to see it, I'll pull it out. I meant the picture. It's a picture of me and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I say, one of these two dummies went on to become the governor of California. Anyway, please, ask me another question. Maybe I'll have an answer.
Got one there?
Yes. Yes, back there. Sorry, I'm not allowed to answer.
Which was your favourite character to play? The Doctor or Mr. Wolsey?
I would have to say the Doctor. However, I love doing Stargate. It just didn't go on long enough, so it's kind of unfair to compare a role that I played for 7 years and did 160 some hours of television with, Stargate, which I was a recurring guest star on SG-1 and then a guest star on Atlantis, and only the commander for the last season. But it was a great job, a lot of fun, and quite easy after Star Trek. Because Star Trek is a much more formal environment, both what you see on the screen, but also, we're not allowed to ad-lib on Star Trek. If I had an idea for a joke, which I often did, I had to phone in about 3 or 5 days in advance before we shot the scene. Wow. So the point is, on Star Trek, you're allowed to be spontaneous as long as you do it 5 days in advance. On Stargate, if I had a joke, they just let me say it. In fact, I didn't even have to tell the director. I could just say it during the take, after I did the take the way it was supposed to be, if I wanted to ad-lib. So that was a wonderful and fun environment for someone who likes to make up lines. But anyway, so yes, I have to say the Doctor, but Stargate was the easier job because I was the boss, and the boss just says, go do this, and then the rest of the episode, they're all doing all the work, and they come back and report to me at the end. So it was fun. It was nice to be in the in the driver's seat for a while.
Okay, we've got another one now.
Just who's your favourite, Amanda Tapping or Jerry Ryan?
Is that all right?
Yes, choose between Amanda Tapping and who? Jerry Ryan. Oh gosh. They're both not only really beautiful women, but they're both so nice. It's a competition on many levels to pick between the two of them. I, of course, spent much more time with Jerry, and we had a special relationship. Jerry used to pinch my butt on the set all the time.
Yeah, but you did that to me.
I did. Once I found out you were never mind. I'm not even going to say it because then it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. But, they're both lovely, terrific women, and both very talented, and I could never pick between the two. Sorry, now this gentleman in the front raised his hand. I'm sorry? He asked the same question.
How many people here want to know?
Really?
Which woman he would choose?
Oh my God. I will tell you one thing about Jerry. Do you remember the episode Tinker, Tenor, Doctor, Spy? When the producer asked me what kind of fantasies would the Doctor have, I said, sketching 7 of 9 nude. I said, without pausing to think. Of course, they put that in the show. I wanted to do the reverse joke later in the season. I wanted someone to be looking for the Doctor, find him on the holodeck in an art class where he was posing nude. I begged them to do that. I thought that was hilarious, and nobody was interested. I'm sorry, she's interested. Okay, thank you. There were no takers for that. But sketching 7 in the nude was one of the reasons we go into show business.
Any more out? The woman with the limbs hanging off.
Did your career just sort of fall into this path, or were you a fan of like science fiction and this sort of genre beforehand? Did you like Star Trek before? And was it something you wanted?
I hate to answer this question because to be honest with you, I was not a Star Trek fan before I was cast in Star Trek, but I have since seen the light. I have confessed myself, I've thrown myself at the feet of the faithful, and I have been saved. Thank you, Gene. I didn't get Star Trek. When I was young, I used to watch, what was it on at the same time? Lost in Space, because
I used to love that show.
Like any kid my age, I had the hots for Angela Cartwright. Yeah. So I watched more of Lost in Space, and I didn't really see Star Trek the first time around. Then, when I graduated college in the mid-70s, my 2 roommates, who were both philosophy majors from Yale, where I had just graduated, they would sit down and watch Star Trek every afternoon, and I was so busy making fun of them, I never sat to watch it with them. Because I thought it was funny that two philosophy majors were watching Star Trek in the afternoon. And then I finally started to watch Star Trek when I was cast in Voyager. They gave me a bundle of episodes of Next Generation, and I went, this is great, this is terrific. And I grew to be a fan of that show, but I still have only seen I've seen a lot of Next Gen, quite a bit of Deep Space Nine, obviously a lot of Voyager. I think I've seen all the movies now, but I have only seen about 5 or 6 episodes of the original series. However, I'm starting to watch that. I've been back to Wells Comic-Con in 4 years. I will have worked my way through you.
Can I squeeze in a question here? I'm a big Joe Dante fan, so what's the link there? Because he manages to squeeze you into quite a lot of his films.
Joe Dante saw me in a Broadway show when I was 24 years old, playing the son of Jack Lemmon, the great actor Jack Lemmon. I was a second lead to him in a major play on Broadway, and then we did it in Los Angeles. Joe saw me play this very kind of intense, combative, unhappy kid in that play, and I guess decided, well, what a great werewolf he would make. I don't know, but I went in and auditioned for him a few months after he saw me in the play. He cast me in The Howling.
The Howling, yeah.
And we just hit it off.
Oh, I forgot you were in that.
We became friends, and then I've worked for him about a dozen times since then. In fact, we're working together on a project called Monster School, which is a comedy that we are working on. It's a project that a friend of mine wrote. 2 friends of mine wrote it. And I brought it to Joe, and now we're developing it with the hopes that Joe will direct it. So watch for Monster School, and it's a very funny, funny comedy, and I would act in it, but also function as a producer as well.
Oh, that's great, because he hadn't made a film for quite a while.
I know, and we all miss Joe. The last time, yeah, I can't remember. I mean, I just did a Hawaii 5-0 episode that Joe directed that'll air here shortly. So we still see each other, but the last really fun role I had for him was on The Masters of Horror, almost 8 or 9 years ago.
You remember that?
So he needs to direct more.
That's a good episode. Was it Homecoming?
Yes, The Homecoming. It was a zombie movie that was a critique of the Iraq War. It was interesting. Very political. And I played Karl Rove, the president's right-hand man, and I suffer a terrible fate.
If any more questions out there, there's one back there, someone reaching into the... No? Don't ignore me.
In terms of the Doctor, do you have any regrets with regards to plot development or character development?
The question is, do I have any regrets with the Doctor regarding plot development or character development? I had the best, it's universally agreed among the Voyager cast that I had the best character arc, because I started with nothing and got to go the farthest distance. So most of the other actors, I've heard them mention either to me or on stage at conventions that the role they would like to have played was the Doctor. And it's really because he had the most interesting arc. He also could break all the rules. Because he was not really a Starfleet officer, he didn't have to behave like one. He could be very self-involved, he could not be courageous, he could react with all sorts of negative character traits. Self-involvement, fear of the unknown, all these things that a Starfleet officer is not supposed to do. And then, when the chips were down, he would rise to his best self. So it was a lot of fun to play, because the audience wasn't used to seeing somebody in a Starfleet outfit act that way. You know, he was so... I thought of my character was sort of a cross between Humpty Dumpty, Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith, I'm sorry, from Lost in Space. I told you I watched Lost in Space, so I did borrow fairly heavily from Dr. Smith in Lost in Space. And of course, I also borrowed from DeForest Kelley, his Bones. In fact, when I met Pete Kelly and told him that my character pays homage to his character, he goes, "Oh, you mean you steal from me?" I'm like, yeah, pretty much. He was a great guy. And of course, I stole quite a bit from this guy as well.
I know. Data.
Rex Minor. This is my. This is says, "Is your problem hardware or software?" Which I thought was hilarious, because the doctor, since Data is a program, I'm sorry, is an Android, so he's hardware, and the doctor
Software.
is a program, so he's software. So I thought that was a funny computer shift, so I took that idea to, what do you call it, to Creation Entertainment, who made the poster. Data had been such a popular character that I was a little intimidated when we started out, because I thought that I would be compared heavily to him, and because he'd been so beloved in the next generation, that was my concern, is that I would suffer terribly by comparison. But fortunately, the writers conceived them so differently. My character was such a crank, and Data was so childlike and innocent and lovable, and I was a kind of a curmudgeonly old guy who underneath was very much like Data. And the doctor's underbelly was quite similar, I think, to Data. But because I was so different on the surface, I think that we got away with recycling a lot of the same storylines. I also made lots and lots of suggestions, some that the writers liked and some that they didn't like. But you know, I said to Jerry Taylor the first season, I think the doctor should be an opera fan, because I thought it was funny that a technological creature would pick such an emotional form of human expression and be a fan of it. Just seemed. And I was just envisioning the doctor working in sick bay listening to opera. When they finally put it in the script, I was singing opera, I went, no, I can't listen. And then they said, well, you can't sing? I said, yeah, I can sing, but I'm not an opera singer. They said, well, try it, and if you can't do it, we'll get somebody else. So I suddenly was singing opera on Star Trek, and I did 85% of my own singing. Halfway through the episode, Virtuoso, my voice turns into a real opera singer when the singing got a little too tough. But all the other singing I did myself, and I did fairly well for an amateur, for a non-opera singer. But others suggest, my best suggestion in retrospect was when Kess left the show, I said to them, I am concerned, first of all, I'm sorry to see our original group break up. But I said, Kess has been the doctor's sounding board. She's been his confidant and his mentor as far as his own developing, humanity. If you take her away, then the doctor goes back to just being a buffoon, just a joke, because he doesn't confide in anyone else. So the producer said, try to think of a way to relate to our new character, 7 of 9. And of course, when I had a look at Jerry, I could think of several ways. And trying to think of one that was appropriate, I went away and thought about it, and I said, okay, well, how's this? I said, what if the doctor assumes that he is the perfect person to teach 7 of 9 how to be human again? He thinks he's a better teacher than a real human. It will turn around the relationship I had with Tess, and the doctor suddenly decides to mentor 7 of 9. And in fact, we could do these role-playing scenes, which I said specifically. Role-playing scenes where I teach you a certain thing about, appropriate social behavior. And they took that idea and ran with it for 4 years, and that ended up being the best, as far as getting really great scenes with a great actress and having a lot of fun, a lot of humor. That turned out to be the best, nudge that I made, because they took it. The writers, they take whatever the actor gives them, and then they make it their own. They make it, and they took it way beyond my wildest dreams, as far as, turning it into a great arc for the two of us. That, of course, culminated with the doctor falling in love with her, the My Fair Lady episode. I've talked too long.
Sorry, no, I might have. That's sorry. I think we've got time for one more. I'm getting special, the hand signals.
Hand signals. Withdrawal.
Absolutely correct.
Can you tell us anything about Star Trek Renegades?
Yes, Star Trek Renegades they've written the script. I've been asked to play, I was asked to play the Doctor in it, and I suggested to them that I play Louis Zimmerman, the Doctor's programmer, because he could age, and the Doctor's not supposed to age. It's that problem we have. That Brent and I have, playing characters that aren't supposed to change. So, as of this point, we are shooting it in late June. Tim Russ is directing. Ethan Phillips is supposed to be in it, and myself, and I don't remember everyone who's announced. in it. Walter King. I cannot remember the whole list of people, but it seems like a really interesting project, and I am going to do it. I can't tell you any more about the plot.
I feel like the Star Trek version of Expendables.
I would say that is for a man who excels in
a-hole.
In grabbing short hairs and shaking it around. I would say that that's a perfect description. So yes, I think it's similar to that. But that's something, I have a number of projects I'm supposed to shoot over the 4-month period, pretty much starting when I get back. A science fiction parody called Unbelievable, Renegades, another project called Space Command, which will be internet episodes, and then a movie with John Delancey that I really hope works out called Over Lunch, which is a very interesting film. So I have a number of interesting independent movies to do. And I still continue my television work. There you go. And, like my friends Kate Mulgrew and Ethan Phillips, I'm hoping to do some theater in the near future. Both Kate and Ethan are doing plays right now, or have just completed them or just starting them. So that's it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up.
I'm going to go back and chain myself to the autograph table. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I hope I see you later on today at the table, and thank you so much for coming.